This was the most disturbing videos on the internet today. Let's dive in.
Under the waves is where we belong.
You can see that what you do is you pretend to be people's friends. You find out what they want, what their weakness is, and you give it to them. If they want money, you give them money. If they want, you arrange for that. If they want, you arrange for that. Whatever it is they want, their weaknesses, you feed them. And then you tell them, okay, I'm doing all this for you and I just need these little favors. And you corrupt them. And you corrupt them until you can control them. And of course, you know what they're doing, so you can always blackmail them if they try to get out of line. But basically what controls them is the knowledge that if they don't go along with you, then they lose out on all these things they like. You know, if they play ball with you, then they become rich, they become famous, they have all of their desires sated, they get everything that they want, but in a mental state which is increasingly depraved and subject to manipulation. And that's also the Venetian method, that you win by corruption. And that the thing that the empire fears most of all is an honest man who isn't corruptible because he doesn't want those things.
The Venetian method, you gotta be careful. Keep your head out there on a swivel. Always do the right thing.
How some of the crystals are formed and studied, they're frozen in a freezer, and then once they're frozen, they're viewed under a microscope with a camera attached to the microscope, and that's how these crystals are studied.
You know what's interesting too, I'm glad you brought that up, is inside, if you ever go to Japan, see these crystals under the microscope, it's almost like a window that opens, because when the light from the microscope hits the crystal, it's like a flower that opens up, and then you actually can see the crystal form, and then it disappears. So it's like a window that opens, and you see the crystal, and then it closes. So you only have a second or two to see this, and then it's gone. So it's like, what a wonderful discovery to be able to just to see water the way we did. Yes?
When the crystal is formed in the ice, does it rise before it's frozen or while it's being melted?
How'd you know that? That's true. It rises as it's being frozen.
As being frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, but there's a lot more to be discovered. I hope the next time I talk, I'll be able to show you some of the other inventions, the water inventions. But I kind of told you some really incredible truths. The information is introduced at the apex. That's a huge discovery. I manufacture some home water products called AquaJewel products, and that's aquajewelproducts.com. I'm a really good water energizer. There's a few good water energizers out there, but you always have to work with two principles. You want to, whatever you do, you want to get rid of the old memory. You don't want that old memory in your water. And secondly, you want new memory in your water. So whatever systems that you buy make sure they work off of both those areas. They re-energize and destroy the old memory, and they also put in a new memory. And you have the ability as electromagnetic beings to program your own water, by the way. You have that resource right there literally in your own hands. That's why they call this holy water, or that's why we pray over our food. These were old habits or old things that we carried up from generations to generations, but they had a reason for doing that way back when. They're communicating to the moisture or the liquid in our food. We're talking to the very thing that's going into our bodies to nourish our bodies. There's science behind prayer. The more we've learned as we get older, or as I've gotten older. I thought it was just a waste of time right before we ate, but it turns out it has significant meaning to me now. And talking to your water, and being with your water more, taking your water with you and talking with it like a friend. As long as nobody's around, you're going to get some benefit. I promise you'll get some benefit. And
wow, what powerful stuff. Who knew talking to your water, energizing it? It makes sense. We're electric beings. I'm going to start praying over my water now. Call me crazy. I need it energized.
Archaeologists in Iraq have discovered something huge. The 4,500-year-old palace of a semi-mythical king has been discovered. It's just all too exciting. The city is called Gazu, and it's one of the oldest cities of human civilization. Archaeologists in Iraq have discovered something huge. The 4,500-year-old palace of a semi-mythical king has been discovered. It's just all too exciting. The city is called Gazu, and it's one of the oldest cities of human civilization ever to be discovered. home to 15,000 Sumerians. This city could date to the transition from villages to urban settlements. In other words, Gazu is the cradle of civilization and the birthplace of urban society
that we know of.
The Sumerian civilization, which ranged from 4,500 to 1900 BC, were the first to incorporate writing into their civilization, and this was called cuneiform, which you can see here. They were also the first to encompass cities in their culture, as well as numbering systems. Archaeologists with the British Museum have also discovered the Holy of Holies, which they have been looking for 150 years. Like the Kaaba in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, the Holy of Holies was a religious area which would have drawn pilgrims on journeys to the site every year. And archaeologists like me are super excited because it may hold many texts which could tell us more about the start of human civilization as we know it. Some of the lost tablets that we hope to find there may also contain the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Which is basically, the Epic of Gilgamesh is basically the story of Noah. It's a story that has been copied and recopied and retold for different cultures again and again and again, but essentially it tells the story of a huge global catastrophe flood that wiped almost nearly everybody out, and human civilization having to reset. That's the essential story that goes it's one of the first stories ever to be recorded in human writing. It is that old. It is stuck in the memory of us. And yeah, the question is, are all these texts talking about separate floods, or are they all referring to one sort of recent catastrophic event that did nearly wipe out all of humanity? You got to work that out for yourself, but have a little Google of the Younger Dryas comet theory, which is the theory that a comet or a series of comets or shrapnel of comets pelted the Earth around 12,000 years ago, causing huge tsunamis, deluges, the sea levels to rise, everything to drown. Could that event be the event that ancient humans are writing about, talking about, and desperately preserving for future generations? Yo, the sky fell down. It was crap.
I'm not too sure about that one, about comets hitting, but I do think an angelic war might have popped off before Adam. I know, this isn't, you ain't gonna find too much scripture on this. Well, you could. I don't know too much about that, but I do think that some type of angelic war was going on, before Adam, before the whole Adam thing, before it said the earth was form and voidless. What if a reset just happened right after the angelic war took off, and before that, and right after that, it said the earth was without form and voidless. So I'm thinking maybe a giant reset happened, and then Noah's was kind of like a soft reset, with just a flood. A major reset was when the earth was form and voidless. I know this is a little out there, but it has me thinking. Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
I will talk about in a later video. But if you don't know, it's a 4,000-year-old poem whose myths were used in the Bible. One of the archaeologists, Dr. Ray, working on this site, believes that there is a shrine to the epic warrior Gilgamesh at Gazu. With the help of texts, we may gain more insight into this myth and see if there's any truth to it.
I think there could be.
It's incredible how much we can learn just by looking at footprints. These footprints were found in White Sands National Park, New Mexico, and date back around 13,000 years. This individual walked close to a mile in one direction, but every so often, these smaller footprints would appear, implying that this individual was walking across the mud holding a child. And judging by the distance of the footprints, this individual was walking pretty fast. A potential reason is that she was being followed by a now extinct giant ground sloth. There's also evidence of a mammoth being quite close to them as well.
That was
there
a
are
big
two sets of footprints
animal
from the same
bear
individual
thing that I
heading
didn't
in different
recognize.
directions. The first set has a child's footprints and the second set doesn't, meaning this individual reached their destination, dropped the child off, and then headed back. From mere footprints, we get a glimpse of humanity's past.
I have a feeling that could be the beginning of the most amazing movie about some ancient woman who's having to get a child back to safety or something. I don't know, it just sparked an idea. I thought, oh, that's a movie.
Definitely a good movie. Getting chased by a giant mammoth bear, you know, that's scary. How fast do those things run? She had to be booking to outrun a mammoth bear. If you thought I didn't have an excellent specimen for you today, think again. Feast your eyes on the stunning fluorite with calcite. Look at how it has like a brown ember brewing inside of it, and then the octahedrals just pulsate out into this violet neon like violet color that I am just captivated by. The white seasonings, almost like powdered sugar encrusting this gorgeous specimen, definitely leaves a lot to think about. If I had to name this crazy specimen, I would have to call this Midnight Octahedral.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, this is coming home.
What? The space in the bean? That's wild. How much?
Isn't that amazing? Look at that. Oh my god. Oh yeah,
This is almost giving me like Uper vibes, like the rocks you find that glow in the dark up north in Michigan. Like a Uper is what it's called, but this is something crazy. Like it's glowing blue. It's got the red popping off, and it's huge, like a meteorite, like a comet or something, some type of alien artifact. If I had to name this specimen, alien artifact for sure. I wonder if they tried to wheelbarrow this puppy out. Like, hey guys, let's get a team lift, throw this baby on the back of the truck. This'll look good in my backyard. Don't do it, leave it there. And look at this. What do we have here? Looks like salmon cubes. If I had to name this specimen, I would call it salmon cubes. What? Salmon dice. What in the world is going on?
Did you know that there's been a whole subterranean level discovered underneath the treasury in Petra, Jordan? So in 2003, during the Iraq War, when tourism kind of took a dip, they got to excavate underneath and around in front of the treasury in Petra, and they discovered 5 chambers underneath. Here's a little diagram of what I'm talking about. So here is the floor level as it is today, and this is the 6-meter underground subterranean area that they found. So this is a zoomed in pic at the front of the treasury. You can see down here, they've cordoned it off, of course, they always do, but they're the chambers. Here's another little view. Now, these are 6-meter tall chambers. That's pretty big. That's like 2 stories of a building. It isn't so surprising to find buried chambers underneath Petra, because most of Petra is underneath either kind of sediment or sand. Like this little door here that's nearly completely lost to time because of the sediment. That's my dog. Again here. Now they're saying the chambers were probably used as tombs, because everything's got to be a tomb or a temple, right? Because Petra is carved from stone, we can't really be sure who made it and when.
Is it just me, or do they literally say everything's just a tomb or temple? Tell us the truth.
We can only really date pottery shards, and that dates back to like a couple hundred BC. But I have an inkling feeling that this could be older. And here's the why. The top line here represents a Roman limestone pavement, like a flooring that the Romans put in when they arrived. But the real floor is actually all the way down under here. That means that when the Romans arrived, it was easier to just pave the current floor level of sediment rather than chip it all the way to the original level. Stay with me. So this is the current ground level of the underground chambers, but it was highly unlikely, looking at design styles, that this was ground level with the rest of Petra. It was most probably higher up, like most modern day houses or buildings. You elevate up for floods and things like that. So realistically, the ground level must have been even lower. And this is pure speculation, but it's not out of the realms of possibility that there could be more chambers underneath these ones, which means that the original floor would then be lower, which means how old is the original floor? Because it takes so long to fill up with sediment over time, so we might need to recalculate. Petra had a really impressive water system that kept everybody alive, but it also stopped floods and flash floods from getting in and wrecking everywhere. A lot of Petra is seriously water eroded. Is it possible that the water system at Petra fell into disrepair or broke earlier than the mainstream said it did, and gave way more time for this to happen, and also for the main ground of the floor to rise up here? Also, in neighbouring Saudi Arabia, these carved camels into the bedrock dated to over 8,000 years old, so maybe.
So I guess they only discovered 15% over at Petra Temple. How fascinating. It's like we're discovering all these ancient buildings. We're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. Shout out to Joanna James for that last video.
Have you ever seen the Rishat structure in Northwest Africa? Well, supposedly scientists don't know what created it. But in my opinion, they know. They just don't want you to know. You see, they have gone through great lengths to keep the true nature of this creation a secret. They do what they always do. They create false narratives to steer your mind away from anything but the truth. But I have the truth. But before I give you the evidenced-backed truth about it, let's look and see what they say about it.
Attention, because it shows a structure that looks like a massive eye sitting in the middle of the Sahara Desert.
The astronauts spotted something that looked like an enormous 30-mile-wide circular shape, which had a center surrounded by concentric rings of stone and sand. And it looked just like a giant eye from all the way up in space. Hence, it came to be known as the Eye of the Sahara.
More than 50 years after the Eye of the Sahara was revealed to the world, it remains a fascinating enigma and a striking sight to behold. Locals call it the Kalb al-Rishat, or the Rish. While the Eye of the Sahara continues to puzzle experts, in recent years, a remarkable new theory about this mysterious structure has been presented. It's believed that this location could have once been the site of a fabled island kingdom that has never been found. The legendary lost city of Atlantis.
Will you pull up the photos of these concentric circles? Tell him.
Yeah, the Rishat, R-I-C-H-A-T. It's worth mentioning that.
Got it already here.
Yeah, in the first couple, I just want to say it's Rishat. I used to call it Rikhat. I was mispronouncing it. But let me ask you this, Joe, real quick. When you saw my video, was that the very first time you had ever seen this thing before?
Yeah.
That's the thing. So many. When I first saw this, I was like, what the By the way, you see that white? All those white blemishes?
Uh-huh.
That's salt. This was under the ocean, and people, let me just say, you mentioned Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock. I love them. And I know for sure that they don't particularly think this is the site for a few different reasons. So let me say there's absolute doubt. Even I am not 100% certain. I'm not even 100% certain Atlantis existed. What I am certain is that humans were doing spectacular things in a cataclysmic event happened called the Younger Dryas and reset something for somebody.
Is there a natural explanation for this formation?
Yes. So let me say that it is considered to be mysterious. They're not 100% certain of it. However, the consensus is that it was a volcanic dome that had risen and collapsed multiple times, like 100 million years ago, allegedly. I say allegedly, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that. I'm just saying I would like to know where sometimes they get these figures from. Like, explain to me why it was 100 million years ago and not 99 or 98. Map it, just type in, even if you went to Mauritania, so you could see this from space. Astronauts use it as a locator, and they weren't really familiar or aware of it until the Gemini missions in the early 1960s. So if you if you just go to Google Earth, you'll be able to find this quite quickly. It stands out, and it's why they call it the Eye of Africa or the Eye of the Sahara.
Now, if you're familiar with my channel at all, you know how I like to tell you that they tell us the truth right in plain sight, and they keep calling this the Eye of the Sahara. I wonder why that would be. Well, I'm going to do a little zoom out for you here of this structure, and then I'm going to show you a few things. Keep that part right in mind. It kind of looks like something here to me. I can't quite place it, but when you compare it to the eye of an alligator, it looks quite similar. And again, when you compare the inner part and the concentric circles, it looks awfully similar to a bird's eye. But I don't think this is a giant petrified bird. Oh no. I think it's a giant petrified dragon. And I'm going to show you evidence of that. First, I want to just point out, this is from the actual map. So we have its eye here, full eye. And if you follow along here, you can see the curvature of a giant, half-covered, petrified dragon. It looks an awful lot like this, to be honest, even with the curved mouth part here. And I'm going to show you a scene from The Hobbit that I think is literally taken right from this dragon. To me, there is an uncanny resemblance to how they bury this dragon in gold and what that dragon looks like in Africa. Here's the dragon in Africa with its eye. And it looks like obviously there's been erosion and it's been buried from a flood and mud. And here's the Hobbit video. Looks pretty similar because they literally like to tell us things right in the movies. And to me, that's no coincidence. Like I said, they'll go to every extent to keep you from knowing the true nature of the place you live. They want you in your little knowledge bubble and not breaking free. And if you're having a hard time thinking that this is an eye, especially of a dragon, well then you just haven't watched enough of my videos. So I'm going to add a little finisher. Because if you don't know that dragons existed and giants existed and dinosaurs are really just a story to keep you in that knowledge bubble, well then you're still in that knowledge bubble. And here's a clip of one of my old videos to help you break out. Let's first take a look at what the 1946 dictionaries used to say. Dragons, now rare. Let's see what Alexa has to say about this. Alexa, how many dragon fossils have been found in the United States?
I'm not mad at him, guys. He's questioning everything. I'm not mad at him. You know, it makes you think, is it a dragon or is this Atlantis? Because it could be a dragon, guys. It could be. Or this could be a ancient civilization Atlantis, but man, how the little circles mashed up to the eye, I'm not mad at him. Kind of reminds me of my boy at Roger at Mud Fossils. You know, we gotta take a look at these land masses and really question, could this be a massive dragon? Do you know how big that thing could be? If it was a dragon, that thing is massive. If that's just his eye, whew, this is a massive titanic dragon.
The number of dragon fossils found in the United States is limited. Only 5 fossils have been discovered so far, limiting the knowledge about these creatures. These fossils are studied by researchers to learn more about dragon species and their evolution. While the findings are preliminary, they provide insights into the life and times of these majestic creatures.
So the dictionary says they're real. Alexa says they're real. Several weeks ago in the UK, they found a fossil that looked like this, even though they called a plesiosaur. That sure looks like a dragon to me. And just a few weeks after that was found, CNN reveals that their scientist actually unveiled dragon remains. Not to mention how they're part of the Chinese zodiac with all real animals, and how there are over 30 verses in the Bible that reference dragons, and how my friend Lori sent me this amazing 1922 dictionary that just happens to have the word dragon in it. And let's see what it says. Is it going to say fictional character, mythical beast? Or is it going to say something else? Winged serpent. And if that still wasn't enough evidence for you, just go to the Google Maps and type that in and see this perfect outline of a dragon. And if you've seen my volcanoes are called...
Yeah, look, you can see the little ears right there. There's the eye. This is a smaller dragon. If these are just the trees, this is just a baby one compared to that other one. But I would be interested in, you know, how did these things just, you know, materialize into the land? The decompose is the word I'm looking for. Like, their biological structure had to be different than ours. Like, if we think about the time with the trees, oxygen's enriched, you know, there's no telling what type of minerals are inside their body that would make them decompose like how they decompose, you know. Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
Buzz from the insides of dragons. We'll look at this smoke just billowing out of where that dragon is. Tell me you don't see this. But you can go
Yeah, that's why is the smoke coming out of there? That's crazy.
on believing what the scientists say, or you can start listening to the people like me who are actually trying to bring you truth. And as always, this was all for entertainment purposes. I know this is just a naturally occurring formation that just happens to look exactly like an eyeball. Yeah, God does these things. He creates these strange looking anomalies. All for entertainment purposes only. Have you
They're definitely not telling the truth about this. What do you think it is? I'm interested to hear it. Drop it in the comments below.
Well, I have said before on film, I don't believe it's a UFO cover-up. I believe that it's a time travel cover-up. My father, we had the documents, we don't have them anymore in the Philadelphia experiment. Einstein worked on it, my father did reveal that. And I just don't believe, I have said at a very important meeting about time travel. They wanted to know what my father knew and such like that. I have stated my issues, that there is no future and there is no past, there's only now. And the way that I think of it is very simple. As a computer, there are icons. You know your birth, you know your mother, and you know your birthdays, you know when your child was born, and each one is a picture within the brain. Well, the way that time works is, those icons are sideways. There is no future, there is no past, there's only the memory of those icons. And can you draw from them as a human being? Yes, you can. But there are those that cannot do that. So if the ET would land here, he would have that ability, and it would segregate our society. See, there are other issues besides religion involved. There's the mental parts that are involved. I don't know if that's hard to follow or what, but these are the type of mind games that need to be played to understand why they do not reveal themselves to the masses.
Going back to what time is, you know, different to what we think. Just try to break down what you're just saying there. So
Jesus is dying on the cross right now.
So all past lives, future lives are happening
We are
now.
limited beings. All we can see is when we were born and our timeline to when we die. It's insignificant in relation to the trillions in the universe. It's insignificant. There is no start if you look at that. It's like Voyager looking back from the edge of our universe, looking back and seeing one single pixel. Is it important? No. Our whole existence is not important into relation. So why should we measure time? We know we go on after our death. We know we were somewhere before our death. My thinking is that human existence is just a coffee break from eternity. So I know this is deep, but what I'm getting at here is very simple, Kevin. There are other reasons why we don't know. Okay. Some can handle it, some can't.
Okay, so if all time's happening at once, so past and future lives are happening now, right? And present moment is real, we've got the rest is an illusion, right? Why is that then, when you say that time travel is the real agenda here, not that we've been visited all this other technology out there, why do you still say that time travel is the real agenda here, though?
Well, time travel is to cover up, because sitting at this table, which I will explain maybe further later, I was tricked into it by the head of the black projects for the Air Force.
1,000 days on Earth. Kind of get what he was getting. Very interesting and deep stuff. Go ahead and hit me with that Fantastic Friday for the code word. The code word today is Fantastic Friday. Drop it in the comments below so I know you're real. And I just want to thank you for your support. That means you watched this video all the way through, and I appreciate it. I just want to say thank you. Your support means the world to me. The words of encouragement really help me bang these videos out, and I'm posting more often over on Jet Ski Chuck, so be sure to check that out. Jet Ski Chuck, there it is. But yeah, I love you guys, man. This was the most disturbing videos on the internet today. See you tomorrow.